Good morning, everyone. A good Zimmer, good Erev Shabbos. Hope you all had a wonderful Yontif. I'm not even sure what to say today. I don't say good morning, I say good Tavach. That's a good Erev Shabbos. It's good enough for me. Baruch Hashem had a wonderful Pesach, and we are back at it. Learning Mishnayos. Today we're learning Perek Hey of Kesubos. Kesubos has total of 13 chapters. We're not quite yet at halfway point. That's okay. Today she is the Nishmas Shapsel Bracha Sab Shmuel Leib B'Yom Moshe Ben Yosef made the Shapsel have an aliyah. And before Shlema, if you saw Baruch Leah Racha Paspasal Zelda, Avram Yosef Ben Risha, and Chai Bas Tababela, before Shlema, Besoch Shah Chol Yisrael. And now it's after Yontif, we go to this whole shekel over here. Seder Nashim is sponsored by our good friends at the Imperial Advisory Group. They are an award-winning CFO advisory firm whose team of CFOs brings an average of more than 30 years of experience. They help businesses go beyond bookkeeping and accounting by providing strategic financial leadership, empowering leadership teams to make more informed, big picture decisions. To learn more about Imperial Advisory, please visit the website at www.imperialgrp.com. Okay, here we go. Perek Hey, Mishnah Aleph, jumping back into Kesubos. Even though the Chacham said that a basula, a virgin, collects 200 zuz for her Kesuba, and a widow or a widow collects a mana, which is 100 zuz. If a chassid wants to add even 100 mana, which is 10,000 zuz, he may do so. He can always increase from the base number. This armala or this gosh. Then, if she becomes widowed or divorced, ben erisin, ben nisuin, whether during erisin or nisuin, go she collects everything, including the extra amount. No problem. Elazar Azariah Omer, Elazar Azariah says, Min nisuin, go vesakol. If she's widowed or divorced after nisuin, after she becomes a full wife, she can collect the entire thing, even the added on money. And the heiress is time mana. But if she was widowed or divorced during heiressin before they consummate marriage, the widow collects only the basic mana. The low cost of what I will ask the concept. The additional amount because she is assumed that he pledged to her only on condition that he brings her. Therefore, since this marriage never reached Nisuin, he makes only the minimum payment. So if the chasam wishes and his brother he may write for the Kesuba because that was his about the a mother. Well, and for a widow, he can write a contract. Jesus, that looks. And the Kala agrees to receive less than the standard amount, her husband first must write a proper Kesuba for the full amount, because this is what was decreed by the Chachamim. And then she can write a receipt saying that that part of it was paid, even if he denied it. Even if he didn't pay anything, she can write the receipt and thereby free him from having to pay that amount. However, she cannot write that she received all of it, or at least completely owes an obligation. That is totally not allowed. But Meir disagrees, and he says, if anyone reduces the amount for a basula to less than 200 zuz, or the amount for a widow to less than a mana, even in the manner described above, Hare zu bi'ilah's nus. This bia between them is immoral, um, since the Kesuba has been reduced to less than the minimum. It is as though they are not married, and therefore they are usher to live together. Clearly, Perek disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda and the other Tanai. Mishnah Beis. Notice on the Besush Nemas the Chodesh, Mishativa Habal, the furnace is Atzma. A Basula, a Kala who is a Basula is given 12 months when the husband asks her to provide for herself with clothes and jewelry for the wedding. Okay, shame, because it used to be that Erisin and Isuin were performed like 12 months apart. And like nowadays we do Erisin and Isuin under the chuppah. People might still have long engagements now, but that's not luckily an engagement until you Erisin. So when once the chassan asked the kala to begin preparing for the nisuin, the kala is given a limited time in which to prepare. So, Kashem shenos in the isha, kach nos in the isha, the finest is that just as the woman is given 12 months, so is the man given 12 months to provide for himself. Ulamana shloshim yom. However, a kala who's a widow from a previous marriage is given only 30 days for preparations, because she already has clothes and jewelry from the first husband. And Yigias Ma'ula Nasu, but if the time of the wedding arrived and they did not get married because the chas insisted on more time, she can eat his food. He must start supporting her as though they had already performed Nisuim, and if she's the daughter of a non-Kohen, and he is a Kohen, she may begin to eat Truma. Tarfon disagrees about. He says no stinla hakol truma. All of her food may be truma, even though she will have to sell some in order to buy ordinary food to eat during her days of tuma. Rabbi Akiva says mechsa chulin and mechsa truma. Half of the food he gives her must be ordinary for the days of tuma when they're not together, and the other half may be truma for her days of tahara. Obviously, the husband would prefer to give her truma because it's cheaper than chulin food, because there's less of a demand for it because it's only available to kohanim. But she can't eat truma when she's tummy, and therefore she has to have other food available. Okay, revisiting Yibam for just a little bit. Mishnah Gimel, Hayavim eno machu b'tshuvas. Hayavam who's a Kohen may not feed truma to his Yavama before he marries her. That can only apply. I mean, if the Yavam's a Kohen, then obviously the brother who died was also a Kohen. It's like, how could it be otherwise? Unless it's not a direct brother, but it's a different relative. Okay. Also says Shisha Chadashim b'fnei Habal, the Shisha Chadashim b'fnei Hayavam. For example, if she spends, okay, so here we go. If she spends 6 of the 12 months before the husband, and the other 6 months before the Yavam, meaning that her husband died 6 months after he asked her to prepare for the Nisuin, and she spent the remaining 6 months waiting for the Yibum, so they never actually consummated the marriage. Even if she spent almost all the 12 months before the husband, except for one day that she spent before the Yavam, meaning that her husband died one day before the end of the 12 months. Oh, or she spent almost all 12 months before the Yavam, except for one day before the husband. Meaning the husband died the day after he asked to prepare for the Nisuin. So if they got engaged on what they got engaged in Isru Chag Pesach, okay, or they had Erisin on Adis Chag Pesach for the year later, okay, and the Yavim dies tomorrow, so the rest of the next 12 months, she's got fallen to Yavam. Eno achas b'tshuma, she may not eat the Yavim's tshuma, even though 12 months have passed. She's not allowed to eat the tshuma until she actually marries the Yavim. Zu Mishnah Rishon. This was the first teaching at the Chachamim of an early generation who martyred a woman to eat truma when the time of her wedding arrives. Based in Shalacharen Amru, however, a based in from a later date afterwards came and said, Ein Isha Achas B'Truma, Asha Tikans the Chuppah, that a woman may not eat truma until she actually enters the chuppah. So this was, we know that if a husband finds out that his wife had a serious physical defect, which he had not been told about, he can claim that the marriage was held on the false pretenses. Therefore, the marriage is nullified retroactively and no divorce is required. It's as if the marriage never took place. So the Chachamim were, for a later generation, were concerned that if a Kal ish truma before Nisuin, and the Chassan finds such defect at the time when Nisuin, and the marriage has been found to have been invalid, then it would come out that she ate truma illegally, and that's a problem. So in order to prevent this from happening, they assered a kala from eating truma until after Nisuin. Mishnah Dalet. Hamakdish Maisi de Ishto was someone consecrated his wife's future handiwork. She may work and eat, meaning that the handiwork does not become consecrated even when it comes into existence. So she may sell it and use the money to buy food for herself. We refer here to a wife who got claims the right to keep her handiwork for herself and not let her husband have it. In that case, since the handiwork does not go to her husband, it's not his to consecrate. Therefore, even according to Rabbi Meir, who rules that one can consecrate something that does not exist, agrees that this consecration fails to take effect. Hamosar, if he consecrated the extra handiwork that she will make into the future, Rabbi Meir Omer Hektish. Rabbi Meir says that it becomes consecrated when he inherits it, even though the handiwork did not exist when he consecrated it. The consecration takes effect once it is produced and he inherits it. Rabbi Yochanan Hasana Omer Chulin. However, Rabbi Yochanan Hasana says that her handiwork is not consecrated even after she dies and he inherits it, because the person cannot consecrate something that does not yet exist or is not yet his. You have to have the item in order to remark this. Mishnah Hey, Elam Malacha Isha Osa Levana. These are the tasks that a woman does for her husband. Tochenes, Ofim, Mechabeses, Vasheles, Manika, Esbina, Masas, Lamita, Osa Betsemer. She grinds grain, bakes bread, launders clothes, cooks food, nurses her child, makes the bed for him, and works with wool. Meaning spins the threads from wool. They're talking about baking bread on the day after Pesach. Pretty cool, huh? But when these practices fell out of style, then these things don't apply anymore. Like no one nowadays is required to grind grain for their husband. That's not a common thing to do. Go to the grocery store and buy fresh flour. You don't need to actually grind the grain anymore. If she brought him one maidservant into the marriage, lo tochenes, lo ofu, lo mechabes. She does not have to grind the grain, bake, or launder, because these three tests have been given to the maidservant. Shtayim, if she brought two maidservants into the marriage, she does not even have to cook the food or nurse her child because those chores can be given to the second maidservant. Shalosh, if she brought three maidservants into the marriage, she does not even have to make the bed for him or work with wool, because these chores can be given to the third maidservant. Arba, if she brought four maidservants into the marriage, Yoshevesh Katedera, she may sit in an easy chair and leave even minor household errands which are not listed above to the maidservants. Had no maidservants been hired, she could have done all these tests on her own, but now that she has them, she can um, she can she can only she can relegate herself to only the things that a woman that a wife can do for the husband that the maidservant should not be doing, such as pouring his cup of wine, spreading a sheet on the bread, washing his hands, face, and feet, and all the intimate stuff. Rabbi Lezer says, "Afilu hiknisalo meya shvachos kofel lasos b'semer." Even if she brought 100 maidservants into the marriage for him, he can make her work with wool. Shehabatala mevia l'deizima, because otherwise she would be idle. Idleness leads to immorality. Um, that's you gotta be busy doing something. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Af hamandir es ishto melazas malacha yotzi v'itein ksubasa." Even if one made a vow, made a neder that forbids his wife to work, but she wants to work, he must divorce her and pay her ksuba, shabatala, nevia, lidei shimon. For she has the right to avoid being idle, since idleness leads to insanity. It's not good. You got to be busy. Mishnah Vav. Hamadir is ishtam mitasha shemita. What makes a vow that prevents his wife from engaging in marital relations? Beishamay Omer Shtei Shabbos. Beishamay say that the limit is 2 weeks. Beis Hillel Omer Shabbos Achas. Whereas Beis Hillel says the limit is 1 week. If the neder prohibits intimacy for less than the stated time, then the wife cannot demand a divorce. But if the length of the isser, if the length of the prohibition exceeds that limit, then she can demand a divorce and collect her Kesuba. Students may go out of town to study Torah without their wives' permission for 30 days at a time, although they will be unable to fulfill their obligations during that period to their wives. Laborers may go out of town to work without their wife's permission for 1 week at a time. Ha'ona, Hamur b'Torah, the chiyuv to be intimate with one's wife that's mentioned in the Torah depends on the husband's occupation. Hatayalim b'chol yom, idlers, men who do not work, are obligated every day. Since they don't engage in work, the weekends then they have time and energy to be intimate every day. Laborers who work locally and come home every night, they are obligated twice a week. Donkey drivers, or nowadays truck drivers who travel for several days at a time, they are obligated once a week. Camel drivers who travel weeks To distant places, they are obligated once every 30 days. Haspanim achas l'shish chadashim, sailors who sail for months on the high seas are obligated once every 6 months. The Rabbi Elazar, these are the words of Rabbi. Oh, yes, so if you're to a doctor's nowadays, you could cut the chamorim are probably like the local drivers, and the gemalim are the ones who are like going like across country or maybe international, but maybe FedEx versus UPS or Amazon or or like 18-wheeler trucks, coming back the up and down. So maybe those drivers. Who knows? Okay. Mishnah Zayin. I'm a red this I'll buy a live. When a woman rebels against her husband, she refuses to be intimate with him. Poskilo miksubasa shiva dinarin. Shabbos, 7 dinars are deducted from a Kesuba every week, 1 dinar for each day. Dinar is the same as a Zeus. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shiva Trupkin. However, Yehuda says that 7 terapkis are deducted from Kesuba every week, one terapik for each day. Now, not sure what a terapik is. Okay. Until when may the husband keep deducting until he deducts the entire amount of Kesuba payments, but no longer. Rabbi Yossi, however, Rabbi Yossi says he may keep deducting forever, even if he deducts more than the amount of Kesuba, she doesn't have the means to pay him the difference. Shema tipola Yerusha Makom Acher Gova Amen. Because an inheritance might fall to her from another place, she might, and he will be able to collect from her. Similarly, if a man rebels against his wife and refuses to be intimate with her, 3 dinars are added to a Kesuba every week, half a dinar for each day except for Shabbos. No money is added for Shabbos because that would be like earning money on Shabbos, which is usher. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shlalo Trupkin. Rabbi Yehuda says that 3 trupiks are added to a Kesuba every week, half a trupik for each day except for Shabbos. Hamashra Mishnah Ches. Hamashra Ishto Ayidei Shlish. If one gives his wife food through a third party, he does not eat with her, but he sends her food. Well, Yifchos Allah Mishnei Kabin Chitin on the Arba Kabin so he may not give her less than 2 calves a week or 4 calves of barley each week. I'm Rabbi Yossi said, Lo Pasuk Shiurim Ela Rabbi Shmuel Shahayis Samach Ledam. Only Rabbi Shmuel set the measure of barley for her meals at twice the measure of wheat, but he was close to Eretz Edom, where the barley was of extremely poor quality. In other cases, the amount of barley need not be so great. And notice that la chatzi kav kidnesh, chatzi lek shemen, the kav gregris o manadaveli. He must also give her half of a kav of legumes, half of local oil, or a kav of dried figs, or a man of pressed figs. And if he does not have dried or pressed figs, he must provide an equivalent measure of other fruits. And notice that la mita mafat he must also give her a bed, a cushion, and a mat to sleep on. And notice that la kipa the rosha, the chagar, the masna. He must also give her a cap for her head, a belt for her waist, a manalin, the maid, and a new pair of shoes from one holiday to the next. The kalim shachamishim zuz, nishtan l'shana, 50 zuz worth of other clothes from 1 year to the next. So the sum of 50 zuz for clothing applies only in the time of the Mishnah and an extra In other times and places, the husband must provide the minimum that accords with the prevailing customs and practices, whether it's more or less than 50 zuz. Um, okay. He does not give her new clothes in the summer because they're thick and hot. And not worn out clothes in the wintertime because they will not protect her from the cold. Rather, it gives her 50 zuz worth of new clothes in the winter when she needs warm clothing. She covers herself with them in the summer when they are worn out. And the worn out clothing is hers to keep, even after he gives her new clothes in the winter, because she needs to wear them when she is in need of. And finally, Mishnah Test, no stain la ma kesel l'tzarek. You must give her one silver ma each week for her minor needs, such as laundering and use the house. V'chelas ima v'lei Shabbos v'lei Shabbos. And she has a right to eat with him every Friday night. Um, Even if they agree not to eat together, in the previous Mishnah, he must eat with her on Friday nights because that is the night of intimacy. It's part of Onik Shabbos to be intimate on Friday night. If he does not give her the silver ma for her minor needs, and she makes more than the standard amount of handiwork, her extra handiwork is hers to keep, and the husband. And what is the standard amount that she must do for him? Mishka Chamish Lam Shesi Bihuda Esses Lam Bigalil. For example, if her work is low, she must warp thread that weigh 5 sellers in Judah, which is the same as 10 sellers in the Galil. Oh, Mishkal Esses Lam Arabi Yehuda Shehen Esses Lam Bigalil. Or warp threads that weigh 10 sellers in Judah. In Yehuda, is it the same as 20 sellers in the Galil? If she was nursing a child, the amount of handiwork she must produce is reduced, and she needs time to attend to the child. And her food allowance is increased. Her husband must give her foods that increase her milk, so she can nurse the child properly. In which case were these words stated? The honest Israel, in the case of a poor Jew, cannot afford anything more. In the case of a wealthy Jew, everything depends on his level of wealth. He must treat his wife in a manner that befits a man of his means. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue on Sunday morning with Perek Vav. Have a wonderful Shabbos and Kol Tov.